Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprophet.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome everyone to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast. I'm Craig Phillips. No Jeff Torrey today. Got a solo show here as Jeff is gone for today. So I'm going to run through all the games from Sunday, Week 4 NFL action. Got the Cowboys-Saints game going into the fourth quarter right now. Cowboys up 10-9 in that one. But we're going to go all the other games here as we get 4 weeks now through in the NFL just about. So really moving along as always. We got Titans, Falcons first game. Titans win 24-10. Now this was a bit of a surprise, seeing the Titans pass offense kind of show up with 3 touchdowns for Mariota. He threw 2 of them to A.J. Brown as A.J. Brown caught 3 balls for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. Corey Davis showed up a bit, 5 for 91 in the touchdown. They both looked pretty good. There was only, A.J. Brown only had 3 targets. Corey Davis had 6. It wasn't like it was huge volume. At least they did something with it, better than they have been. I don't know if this will translate going forward, but it's nice to see some flashes from those 2 guys. And then Delaney Walker didn't get much going, but Derrick Henry had 27 carries, 100 yards. Just a lot of volume there for him, which is good if you're an owner of Derrick Henry. No touchdowns, however, so that one kept the score down a little bit, but still a pretty decent fantasy output for him. Falcons side of things, just not able to get much going. It's kind of frustrating for this Atlanta offense right now. Matt Ryan did throw for 397 yards, but no touchdowns. Austin Hooper's had another good game for Austin Hooper with 9 for 130. Sanu at 9 for 91. Devontae Freeman 8 for 72. Some good receiving games from them. But then the big guys, Julio Jones especially, 4 for 52 only. And then Ridley 3 for 32, 2 games in a row where he hasn't done much. On the ground, Freeman 12 for 28. Hasn't been able to get going very well. So it's just a disappointing game from Atlanta. I mean, you're still starting Julio. Calvin Ridley's borderline if in the 3 receiver leagues. Not much happening from him right now. Hopefully that turns around too. Patriots beat the Bills 16-10. Nothing at all fantasy-wise for Tom Brady. In fantasy, he got you 3.7 points today, but his team gets the win. No touchdowns, threw a pick. Very ugly game for Brady. That way, 150 yards. Sony Michel gets 63 yards on the ground, no touchdowns. Not much to show for, on the offensive side. James White with 8 for 57 on receiving. Josh Gordon at 3 for 46. Edelman 4 for 30. It's that kind of game, but they get the win. I guess that's all that matters for them. Fantasy-wise, it was ugly. Speaking of ugly, Josh Allen, 3 picks. He got knocked out of that game, but before that, he was not helping your fantasy team too much. Luckily, he got a rushing touchdown to salvage it a bit, but other than that, it was not much going on for him. Frank Gore, 17 carries, 109. So if you've used Frank Gore 2 weeks in a row, got to feel pretty good about that at least. Then receiving-wise, the bright spots, I guess Cole Beasley in PPR, 7 for 75 is not a bad game. John Brown, 5 for 69. And then Dawson Knox has kind of stepped up here 2 weeks in a row, a little bit today. Not much. At least he's showing some kind of volume, 3 for 58. I think he could start to move into the conversation going forward at tight end. Chiefs beat the Lions 34-10 in a close one. Darrell Williams gets a touchdown with 20 seconds left. No Patrick Mahomes touchdowns today. That's not normal at all. The touchdowns went 1 to McCoy on the ground and 2 to Darrell Williams. So if you played Darrell Williams, you didn't get much at all on the ground. You got 8 for 13. You did get 3 for 43 receiving the ball, but you got those 2 rushing touchdowns, which made it a good fantasy day. Receiving-wise, Travis Kelce, 7 for 85. Watkins, not much happening since that opening game. He only had 3 for 54. And then if you're relying on Demarcus Robinson or McCole Hardman, nothing there. 4 for 35 for Robinson, 2 for 9 for Hardman. Disappointment for those guys. Lions side of things, Matt Stafford had a pretty solid game with 291 and 3 touchdowns. Kerryon Johnson looked really good on the ground. 26 for 125, caught 2 balls for 32 yards. Galladay gets 5 catches, 67 yards, 2 touchdowns. Probably should have been a third. I'm disappointed as a Lions fan not to get that other one. And then T.J. Hockenson got a touchdown before he got knocked out of the game as well. So Lions can't quite win that thing. But hey, they showed something at least, I think. I was happy to see them. They can play with the Chiefs. Raiders, 31, Colts, 24. Kind of surprised at that final score. I didn't think the Raiders would be able to go win that one. But Derek Carr throws 2 touchdown passes, 1 to Tyrell Williams, who went 3 for 36 and touchdown. Darren Waller, 7 for 53. So not great fantasy games there. Josh Jacobs, 17 for 79. Decent, I guess. He didn't completely destroy your day, but no touchdowns, so it's just okay. Colts side of things, Brissett gets himself 3 touchdowns. Marlon Mack did not get much going there. 11 carries, 39 yards. And then the receiving side of things with no T.Y. Hilton, just no one really stands out at all. Pascal, 4 for 72. Just not much happening for the Colts as they lose this one in kind of a disappointing fashion. Chargers, 30. Dolphins, 10. Dolphins got on the board early there with a nice touchdown to Devontae Parker, but that was about all they could do. Drake with 9 for 44 on the ground. Parker did have the 4 for 70 and a touchdown. It was a good fantasy day for him, but you still can't start him. You can't start anybody from this Dolphins team. For the Chargers, you kind of hoped for maybe a little better fantasy output. It was solid, I guess, for Rivers with 310 and 2 touchdowns. Eckler, 60 yards on the ground, gets himself a touchdown. 62 yards receiving, gets himself a receiving touchdown. Great day for Eckler. Gordon wasn't used at all, as it looked like he was going to be active, but there was completely emergency situations only. So Eckler, one final really good game in fantasy. Wait and see how this is going to play out with Gordon back. I think Eckler's still going to be a valuable flex option. I really think they're still going to use him quite a bit. And Keenan Allen, only 5 for 48 today. Not a big game for him, but they didn't really need to do much today. So, that's to be expected. Giants get the 24-3 win over the Redskins. Daniel Jones is now 2-0 in his Giants career. 1 touchdown, 2 picks, so not the greatest fantasy day. 33 yards rushing. Wayne Gallman, though, stepped in and played very well. I mean, fantasy-wise at least. 63 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Also caught a touchdown on 6 for 55, so really good game if you plugged him in with Barkley out. Sterling Shepard went 7 for 76. Ingram, 4 for 54 for the Giants. And then the Redskins, just nothing there. Adrian Peterson, 11 carries, 28 yards. Chris Thompson had 4 for 4. He gets his receiving yards again, 4 for 56, but just not much of a day. Paul Richardson, 3 for 14. Haskins he came in 9 for 17, 107. No touchdowns, 3 picks. Yeah, not very impressive. Browns get the nice win over the Baltimore Ravens, 40-25. Nick Chubb led the way, 20 carries, 165 yards, 3 touchdowns. Great game for Chubb. Baker Mayfield was okay, 342 yards, touchdown pick. Odell Beckham did not get going at all. Only 2 catches, 20 yards. 2 disappointing games in a row. Really kind of 3 out of 4 so far for Beckham. But he's Beckham. You play him. You have to play him. I think this will turn around. Today was the Jarvis Landry game. 8 for 165 for Landry before he went out of the game. But very solid. Ricky Seals-Jones shows up here with Njoku not in the lineup with the injury. 3 for 82 and a touchdown. But the Browns get the win. So, coming back from their disappointment to start the year a little bit, I would say. Panthers 16, Texans 10. Kyle Allen leads the Panthers to a win. Not much fantasy-wise for him. 232 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. But it's all Christian McCaffrey again. 27 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown. The yards per carry is not very high, but the volume's there. Gets himself a touchdown there, and then 10 catches, 86 yards. Terrific game as always for McCaffrey. Can't go wrong with him. DJ Moore, 3 for 44. Greg Olsen, 2 for 5. Curtis Samuel, 3 for 32. Those guys got you nothing today. Just disappointment in the receiving game. Pretty much disappointment for anybody fantasy-wise on Carolina, except McCaffrey, but they get the win, so there's that. Over with Houston, though, Deshaun Watson, no touchdowns, 160 yards, throwing the ball. That's big disappointment there. I don't understand what's going on there with the Houston offense. Carlos Hyde, 12 for 58. Duke Johnson, 6 for 56. DeAndre Hopkins, 5 for 41. And Fuller, 3 for 23. Just, then they gotta get something figured out here in Houston. That was ugly. And it's, Deshaun Watson might be dropping down the quarterback ranks a little bit. And shoot, how about this one? Probably the biggest surprise of the day. Tampa Bay, 55. Rams, 40. That got Jameis Winston showed up again, actually, 2 weeks in a row for Jameis. 385 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. Just amazing there. Chris Godwin was the big boom player this week on the receiving side. 12 for 172 and 2 touchdowns. Terrific game for Chris Godwin. Mike Evans, 4 for 89, got a touchdown, so he still had a pretty solid game fantasy-wise, but Chris Godwin, just a massive game today. O.J. Howard, still not much there, 3 for 33. And on the ground, it was Ronald Jones leading the backfield with 19 carries, 70 yards, and a touchdown. So Ronald Jones kind of took over the backfield today there. For the Rams, Jared Goff had to throw the ball 68 times. I think that might be some sort of NFL record there. 68 pass attempts, 517 yards, 2 touchdowns. He threw 3 picks. But, made it for big games for Woods. 13 for 164, Kupp 9 for 121 and a touchdown. And then Brandon Cooks had only 6 for 71. He wasn't able to get really in on the action there. Todd Gurley now, only 5 carries, 16 yards. That right there is a big disappointment, but they were from behind early. They couldn't really run the ball. But he turned 5 of those carries into 2 touchdowns. Also caught 7 for 54, so he turned it into a good fantasy day. Just nothing on the ground. They got down early, had to pass, and couldn't quite make the comeback there. It was definitely an interesting game for the Rams. Did not see that one coming. Seahawks beat the Cardinals 27-10. Not much of a big day for Russell Wilson fantasy-wise. They didn't really need to. So 240 yards passing, 1 touchdown. He only had 7 on the ground. Chris Carson had a solid 22 carries for 104 yards. No touchdowns or anything there, but he also had 4 for 41. So he had a pretty good game if you played him. Tyler Lockett only 4 for 51. Kind of expected a bigger game from him. Just didn't happen. And then Will Dissly, 7 for 57, a touchdown. He's top 10 tight end. I ranked him, I believe, 8th coming into this week, and that's just going to continue. He's producing week after week. He's one of the top guys now, in that top 10 startable players. DK Metcalf only 1 for 6. I still think he can be a good player, just not much today. Kyler Murray for the Cardinals, 241. No touchdowns and a pick. Ran for 27 yards. Got himself a rushing touchdown to make it an okay fantasy day, but nothing special there. David Johnson, 11 for 40 on the ground, but he made up for it with 8 catches for 99 yards in the passing games to end up with a pretty solid fantasy output. Not much from Larry Fitzgerald, 5 for 47. Christian Kirk, 4 for 37. So not much from those guys today, as the Cardinals still can't get that first win there. Bears 16, Vikings 6. Vikings offense just looks bad. Kirk Cousins looks bad. 233 yards, no touchdowns, just doesn't look good. Dalvin Cook only 14 for 35. Kind of a disappointment after what he's been doing so far this season, but got himself a rushing touchdown. Caught 6 for 35 to make it a decent day. So 70 total yards and a touchdown. You'll take that if that's the worst. Adam Thielen did not get going at all. 2 catches, 6 yards. And Diggs showed up today. 7 for 108. The only player who did on this team, fantasy-wise. It was ugly for the Vikings today. For Chicago, Mitch Trubisky gets knocked out of this thing early. Chase Daniel comes in, throws a touchdown. David Montgomery, 21 for 53. Volume's there for Montgomery. He's just not able to get it done. I know Minnesota's a tougher opponent against the run, but still, Montgomery's not getting that thing done. Allen Robinson, 7 for 77, is pretty much the only thing for the Bears on offense, but they get the win, so that's pretty much all that matters. And final game that's completed, Jaguars 26, Broncos 24. Gardner Minshew gets another win for Jacksonville as they get the field goal there at the last second. Minshew threw 213 and 2 touchdowns. Leonard Fournette, wow, that was a game for him. 29 carries, 225 yards, 2 catches, 20 yards, so 245 total yards. No touchdowns, which I guess is the disappointment if you have one, but that is a massive game for Leonard Fournette. It's good to see him actually be able to come out and play like that. It's an awesome game from Fournette. DJ Chark, 4 for 44. D.D. Westbrook, 5 for 56. So not much receiving, but just a massive game for Fournette. That's awesome. See that Broncos side of things. Phillip Lindsay, 9 for 53. Royce Freeman, 6 for 16. Hopefully, just disappointment there. I mean, Freeman got the 4 for 34. Make it a little better, but just not a very good game. Emmanuel Sanders, 5 for 104. Cortland Sutton gets 6 for 62 and 2 touchdowns. So he made himself a good play if you played him. Doubt you probably did. Flacco did throw 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, 303, but Broncos aren't a team you're really looking to play very much. And then we got the Saints-Cowboys game still going in the 4th. Not much to talk about yet for this. I'll try to talk about it more on tomorrow's show as we get the recap, but as of right now, this is going to obviously change. Dak's not really has much on the scoreboard yet. Zeke got himself a touchdown, but we'll see how these final 11 minutes go, and maybe they get some fantasy output going, but that will do it for the week. For Sunday recap. I'll be back tomorrow night. Waivers, get some waiver wire players, talk a little about this Cowboys-Saints game, talk about the Monday Night Football game between the Steelers and the Bengals, Talk to you guys then.